Hi, guys, and welcome to the Quinn podcast. Here we give you a look through the eyes of the most successful athletes, entertainers, entrepreneurs, and influencers on this planet. Be sure to check out all of the content at quinnpodcast.com. Enjoy the episode. Perfect place to start. I saw your post from last week. You got engaged.
Yes, yeah, I
That's
did.
something.
Yeah, it's definitely my biggest achievement. I don't know how you are, or probably the audience is, but for me, like the reason I got into entrepreneurship was because of the family and was because of the girl.
hmm
I wanted to be the best provider I could, so having that come to fruition finally made it all worth it.
Yeah, I love that. I saw in your caption, you were like, I was building a man that could attract the woman,
Yeah,
the right woman for me. Elaborate on that. How do you see that?
yeah, I mean, from the get-go, I mean, I saw my dad's relationship with money and how that affected his life and
hmm
affected the way he probably raised us and how he could show up for us spiritually, mentally, physically.
Right.
And I was like, I don't want to be in that position where, when I get to the stage where I have a family that, I don't have the time to spend with them, that I'm constantly under stress because of money, I'm not kind of free. So I knew that I had to build the person that was able to have that freedom and success and money. So then I could attract the best partner that I could essentially. And that was kind of the only game for me, because I knew the more value that I created for myself, the more options I would have in terms of choosing the partner that would best suit me, and then the better life that I would have.
hmm
And ultimately that's where I've got to. And I think I couldn't have found anyone better, to be honest.
Yeah, I love it, man. Congrats on that one.
Thank you.
That's amazing. Take me back, bro. At 18, you started. Was it Platinum Prospect?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
What was that journey like? Take me through that.
Yeah, it's good you did research. So I was working at a business coaching firm at the age of 17. So essentially what I did, I was doing lead generation. I would cold call business owners and I set up a business consulting session free of charge. That's what my job was.
hmm
And 6 months into it, when I first came there, I was fucking horrible. Like I stuttered, I couldn't read properly, I couldn't do the script properly. Then they gave me like a week's notice, like if you don't pull your shit together in a week, we're gonna fire you. And that week I took the script home, I read it every day, just really kind of made it my own. And then within 6 months, I was the top sales guy in that business coaching firm. And at that time, there was a manager there was kind of my mentor, and I suggested to him like, let's go and start up our own shop. We can offer a better service and get better clients. So we kind of did, and that's where the first business was born. So it's like a telemarketing company. We did direct response or direct mail advertising to
hmm
lead generation for business coaches.
What do you think drove that passion back then, at that age?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's more about I think the mentor gave me a lot of strength and clarity, knowing that he was there to support me and I was doing it with him. I was fortunate that I was going out on my own and I had his guidance. And I just thought it was an amazing opportunity that I would get to work under someone who's had 40, 50 years experience in business
Sure.
at such a young age and be partners with him. That was an experience I really couldn't pass up.
No, I hear you. You finished business school, right?
I didn't finish. I started, but then I never graduated.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. How was that like balancing that out? You did it for a while, or you were like, nah, I gotta go fully on the business.
Yeah, I finished all the modules, but I just never graduated.
Okay.
So most of my time was split half between the business and half between getting my degree. But then obviously the degree didn't matter in the end because the business was doing well. I just saw the correlation between everything I was learning in uni had nothing to do with what I was doing day to day, which
hmm
really motivated me and inspired me to actually use the degree.
That's a tough one. For me personally, like balancing it out, because you want to go all in on the thing you're passionate about, right?
Yeah, I think you probably heard this multiple times, but actually doing the thing is the biggest education and learning that you
Sure.
can actually do. I mean, everything else is theoretical and information is just neutral and it's not wisdom until you actually apply the information and make it practical.
hmm That's for sure. That's true. And then at 20, you sold it.
Yeah, I think at 20 I sold it. Yeah, about 20 years old. Yeah. And then I started a company that was import wholesale. So what I
hmm
did, I used to get brands from overseas and then bring them into Australia and sell them to mass retailers. And the first brand that I imported was called Vectivia. It was like a wireless projector that will connect your TV to your PC. This is like fucking 15 years ago, and that was amazing.
hmm
Got like Mac World Product of the Year. Anyway, I contacted the company, asked them for the rights. The owner said, yeah, come, I'll fly down to Australia to see you. And I'm here, this like fucking 19, 20-year-old kid, you know what I mean? And I looked like I was 15. Like, what am I going to do? And I said I was the marketing manager of the company. I wasn't, at that, I was still self-aware enough to know that I'm not going to tell him I'm the owner because
hmm
dude, he's not going to give me the rights. I mean, it's big.
Right.
So then what I did, I brought him into my accountant's office. I changed all my accountant's signage to my company name. And I walked in from my accountant's office and pretended like that whole team was mine. Introduced him to fake roles like this guy's head of marketing, this guy's head of operations. And I took him down to a 3PL warehouse, Star Trek warehouse, and said, this is our warehouse. And he kind of bought the narrative and gave me the rights. And that's where I got started that next business.
I love that. That's amazing. What did like selling the first business at 20? Like, what did that teach you later on during your entrepreneurial career?
I think that sale didn't teach me too much, to be honest. That was just a vehicle to hop into the next one. I needed more capital
Sure.
to go into the next vehicle, so I didn't really learn too much from that. To be fair, yeah.
What did you want to do when you were like 16? What was the vision?
Bro, I had no idea. I think because I had that business coaching job, so I was speaking to about 100 and 150 business owners every single day. So I got exposed to all these different type of businesses, and I know all the numbers, their pain points, their strengths. So import wholesale for me was always attractive, and just think
Right.
like this, like only because when I was writing down the lead form on the piece of paper, the revenue would always be super high, and they have very little employees. Because import wholesale, you don't need many employees, right? So it always
hmm
like $2 to $3, $4 million and 3 employees. And I was like, fuck, this is an amazing business. You know what I mean, this is the kind of business I want. So just based off that little data sheet that I had, and kind of led me to import wholesale.
It was just money. You just wanted to make money.
Yeah, just money, pretty much. Yeah,
I
exactly.
love that.
There's
That's
no
amazing.
other purpose behind it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing though. Okay, and then what? I don't know. You sold it. You sold that one too, or what were the ventures after that?
So from that point, I started developing brands. Like I was importing
Okay.
brands from Australia. Sorry, from all around to Australia. And next big brand I had was Onies. And essentially, what I did, the way I broke through with this product was that I did influencer marketing. This is again like 15 years ago, and I was talking about it. And it was a time when Beats started kicking off. I was like, how am I against these mass retailers? You know, first of all, young kid again. I've got a brand that no one knows in
hmm
Australia. And I approached Sony Music in Australia with, and they've got like all the artists, like they own all the artists, all the big shows, everything else. And I made a deal with them where I gave them 10% of all sales if their whole roster would be ambassadors for my headphone brand. And every time they launched a single, they would launch a single inside of a retailer that I chose to promote their single. So that attract an audience to the retailer. So then when I approached the retailer, it was like the amazing package. I go, I'll give you this brand exclusivity. I'll make sure all these artists, these famous sing-songwriter artists, are going to draw attention to your retail channels by doing performances inside your stores, and you have exclusively. And that was how like I made my next break in terms of actually getting another product into mass retail. And then from there, I just started developing brand after brand. I had a sports headphone brand, it's called Sports Beats. I had a Bluetooth speaker brand. I had a drone brand. I had an iPhone case brand. I had a power bank brand. I just started developing niches within the retail stores because what I understood at a young age was that that's all I could fight for was the shelf space.
hmm
So when you go into a store, I'm against Sony and all these other big brands. I haven't got their marketing budget, but I'm on the same shelf space as them. So I knew that if I could speak to the customer and be more relevant to them as to a specific pain point or desire they wanted and put that on the packaging, then I would win. That's why, like, in terms of headphones, I did headphones, not just wireless, but wireless for sport. So when you go to the headphone bay, obviously, if you're looking for sports headphones, I'm going to be the most attractive option and it wouldn't require me to spend any marketing dollars.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Consumer branding. That's the passion now.
Yeah.
You'd
Yeah.
say.
Yeah, brand building I think is a big passion now because now I see the long-term equity and benefits in building a brand long term.
hmm
Well, I think it was slightly immature and I didn't look at brand building from a lens of like 5, 10, 15 years. I was just using a brand to create a narrative to get short-term cash. And I just kept flipping and scripting new brands all the time. And I had like 13 brands at one stage, 13
hmm
businesses. But then really, I didn't really, never really build the brand. I had a lot of brands, but I didn't build any brands, if that makes sense. There
Yeah,
was
for
no
sure.
real equity in the brands that I could potentially sell extra for that had a meaningful, I guess, place in society.
How does that work with selling a retail brand? Because I understand like software, it's like 8x, 10x, whatever. How do you calculate that in retail brands?
Yeah, retail brands is hard. It depends on your distribution network and how wide it is and how many
Right.
retailers. Sometimes, for example, I had a major retailer, Dick Smith. They were my biggest client, where a lot of my brands were housed, and then they went bankrupt overnight, and I lost about $5 million. This is like when I was 25 years old, and almost had to start from scratch. So at that point, I had a lot of concentration risk because I had one major retailer supporting the brands, not multiple. So I think the EBITDA would have been 1 to 2x max.
Okay, that way. I hear you. How do you decide like the niches and the products to go into for yourself?
At the moment, it's more around just purpose and pleasure.
hmm
Like for example, I started football supplements a couple of years ago. It wasn't successful, but that was born from me having a problem when I was younger, not physically being able to catch up in terms of the football players, and I wanted to solve that problem for other football players. And that was a passion of mine in nutrition and supplementation. And then recently, Qure Skincare, the one that's done like 0 to 50 mil in the last 3 years, that was a passion of my sister's. in terms of curing her skincare needs and
Hmm.
skincare problems. So a lot of the stuff now, I think it's more passion driven because I believe that we're such good marketers at this point that we can win in any category, and we'd rather be doing something that we enjoy for a long period of time than just trying to chase the money.
Yeah, for sure. That's cool. What was the company you invested 2 million in and then decided before you launched? That was that one?
That's football subs. Yeah, football subs. After about 18 months, I had to close it down.
Why is that? Take me through that.
I think product market fit just wasn't there. Like we had Atletico Madrid, we had Real Madrid players, we had Barcelona players, we had like free nutrition masterclasses and custom diet plans. We had enormous value that we could give someone and give to the market, but they just weren't mature enough, and I think to understand the benefits in it. Although you would think football players need supplementation and they watch what they eat, but they really don't. That's a very
Hmm.
small segment. And no matter what you do in the day, the market will never lie, and there was just no product market fit. So we had to close it down because I had Qure Skincare growing, 300-400% year on year, and then I had football subs growing like 10%, 20% each year, and I just
Hmm.
had to choose which boat I was going to row in, I guess.
How would you have done that different? You wouldn't have started it at all, or?
Well, the plan was to start. I would have done an MVP product. I would have done one product. It was like a pre-game product. Tried that, see if it worked. But the problem was, and that's what my plan was. But the problem was, in the meantime, I signed Atletico Madrid as like a sponsor
Hmm.
because I got in through some connections. And then they required a whole range of products. So then I had to invest a lot more to cater for all the other products I needed: protein, creatine, energy gels, blah, blah, blah. So that kind of spread me thin and made the company a lot more resource heavy and inevitably allowed me to take a bigger loss. But if I stuck to the original principle of creating one product, validating the market for that one product, and then expanding, then I probably just wouldn't have lost it as much.
Yeah, that's an interesting one for sure. Um, how do you go about those licensing agreements? Because I know jack shit about that one, but
Really?
that's fascinating. Yeah.
Yeah, licensing is not too hard. So in the past, I've done licensed Easter eggs with Manchester United and
Hmm.
Liverpool. They sent to retail. I've created the world's first flying Angry Birds toy. That was app driven. That was also licensed. I still have the business today, which is Umbro, the apparel brand. Have you heard of it?
Sure.
I have the Australian license. And really, it's just about approaching the person who holds the license and demonstrating capability that you can grow the license in that region with your previous expertise. You pay a minimum guarantee upfront, like you say, I'm going to do $5 million in sales. The royalty is 10%, then that's 500 grand, right? And then you have to pay minimum guarantees normally half of what you think you'll do. So you have to pay minimum guarantee of 250K upfront, and they'll
Hmm.
give you a license as long as you keep it in the numbers that you agree on.
Interesting. Fun. So you're building Qure right now. Take me through that. What's the biggest, like, I don't know, hurdle or challenge you're facing with that?
The biggest challenge at the moment is how quickly we're moving in terms of developing new products.
Hmm.
We've opened up multiple product categories in such a short amount of time. Like we've been open, this is our fourth year, and we're in four product categories. We almost launch like a new product category every year, which requires so much resources to be able to market and support. So the biggest challenge at the moment is creating, a single threaded leadership channel within our business that enables us to be consistently marketing those product categories. Where at the moment we have limited resources to be able to do everything efficiently. So we have to kind of pick certain products to market and not give as much resource to the other products, which kind of, yeah, I guess it's slowing down our growth a bit until we can make up for that.
How do you do that? How do you approach that?
It's just about finding the right team and creating like pod silos. So it's creating almost individual P&Ls within the business and individual categories. So you have a team and a pod specifically for one product category, and you keep doing that across multiple, so they're not sharing resources. So people have a single focus on what they're trying to achieve. I think a lot of businesses go wrong is when they spread the resources across multiple product categories and multiple departments, and then ultimately nothing gets done properly. And I think that's where a lot of business owners fail.
It's fun. What's different about Qure from like a marketing perspective? How do you position it as a different entity?
It's a good question. It's the products that stand out. We spend a lot of time in product development. Like the mask took us about 2.5, 3 years. It's the world's only first customizable LED face mask. And then the authority figures. So when you create like an amazing product, the flywheel obviously works out in your favor because then you can approach, the better influencers because they want to associate their brand with an innovative product rather than a Me Too product. And then because
Hmm.
of that, obviously, your sales increase, and then you can create more products that are fairly unique and innovative. So I think it's really the innovation that's allowed us to stay on top.
You first launched MVP and then the brand around it, or how did you do that?
Now, this one we went all in, same as the football stuff. So we went all in. We
Okay.
made made the face mask. I think that was an easier bet because it was just a trending category. And I believe the technology, because I was using the technology myself with like a massive LED stand for, I don't know, 3, 4 years before that. So I definitely believed in the technology. I believed in skincare. I believe in selling something that has a vanity metric to it because it's easy to market. And yeah, we kind of just went all in on the first product and went from there.
It's funny. I was at like a golf tournament, like I don't know, 3, 4 years ago, and there were these guys. They were like pitching this exact product or like a
Really?
variation on it. I have no idea where those fuckers are now. They're not where you're at. That's for sure.
Well, on the golf course, I'll pitch you, man.
Yeah, I don't know what they were doing, but they were just like from table to table. They were just like talking about their thing and trying to raise money. I don't know. It's pretty funny.
Oh, okay. Well,
Yeah,
they want something.
yeah, they were hustling. That's for sure. Yeah, and they were onto something. Yeah, I love it. So then the brand for Qure itself, like how do you, from your perspective, like from your mind, you have this product, and then how do you decide how to position it in the market? How does your decision framework revolve around that?
So in terms of positioning, we haven't even nailed that yet either, because we kind of try and see what the market comes back to us first, what feedback we get. Because in the past, when I launched products, I would assume certain things, but then the market will tell me different data than when we started selling the product. But what it looks like now is that we're moving towards more of an anti-aging brand for
Hmm.
women 40 over, 40 plus. Where at the start, we kind of came into it where it was more of a youthful brand, maybe women from 25 to 40, based on my sister's journey because she was that age bracket and she was a co-founder. But now, as we're moving forward, we're trying to rebrand ourselves as more of an anti-aging company and targeting that older demographic women.
That's just split testing. How do you approach that?
I mean, it's just like letting Meta serve the ads to everyone and seeing who resonates.
Mhm.
It's not too sophisticated. That's simple as
That's
that.
the way to do it.
Yeah.
Sure. That's cool. Um, you started with your sister. What's that been like? Because like that can go both ways, right?
Yeah, I mean, like the highs are highs and the lows are lows. It is what it is, you know. And when we get the shits at each other, we just block each other for a couple of days, comes down, and then back to normal business as usual.
It's dope though, because there's this like there's this level of like loyalty and trust that's like unparalleled. But
Yeah,
at the same time, you're like you give each other shit. I can
yeah,
imagine.
yeah. And then you're more confrontational, you're more comfortable to speak the truth to each other. So then more issues arise, and then she has her direction where she wants to go with the business, and she's more passionate. She's got a lot more heart in the business, where I'm more business orientated. So obviously we're not really aligned, and we have to all try and find a happy medium. And hardly ever works out, but when it does, it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, I can imagine. That's fun. Yeah, I have a sister. She's like 3 years younger. She's like wicked smart, but at the same time, I can imagine
Yeah, yeah.
it's tough. Yeah, that's for sure. It's fun. Um, with Cure, what's the biggest risk you took? You'd say, or it's not that risky of a venture. You've taken riskier ventures.
Yeah, I've definitely taken risky ventures, I'll be honest. Yeah, it's probably not the riskiest venture I took. It probably cost us like $500,000 to start all in.
Hmm.
So it's definitely on the scheme of things, hasn't been my riskiest venture.
What's been the riskiest? Take me through that.
Probably the football subs.
Okay.
Football subs I invested probably 1.5 mil.
Yeah.
I had to pay for the sponsorships, product development, the brand, everything else, product.
Was there like a specific like make or break moment you remember from like from your perspective?
In the football subs company,
Yeah, I'd say so. Yeah.
probably not. I
Just cumulative.
Yeah, it was just a community, but probably the one moment when we started seeing we're doing ads with Atletico Madrid and we're paying like some of the top players, and those ads weren't converting. I think that was like, okay, like we can't do anything else. Like we had, actually, there was probably one moment where we had these F2 freestylers, they're YouTubers for football. They've like, I don't know, 20, 30, 40 million followers across all channels. They're huge. And we made like 7 to 8 pieces of content with them, Atletico Madrid, and our product, and we got like $1,000 in sales. That was when I was like, you know what? There's just no product market fit here. Like we couldn't think of better activation to do and to drive $1,000 in sales. It's just insane.
Yeah. No, I hear you. Yeah, tough. Yeah, it's whatever though. That's entrepreneurship is, right? That's cool.
Yeah.
Um, how did you go about from like back in the day? How did you go about learning branding specifically? Because I'm just fascinated by consumer branding. What was your
What interests you most about consumer branding?
I don't know. I'm just like I'm sort of passionate about it in a way. Just creating emotion behind it and like like you say, like split testing stuff and then just finding something that works. I know I haven't been able to like put it into words, but just sort of, I love it. When guys talk about like investing, it doesn't fire me up as much as branding, consumer branding specific. Yeah.
I mean, branding is just like making associations known to your brand and hopefully positive ones.
Hmm.
So our job, I think, has been how can we create positive associations with our brand at scale? And that's what we do from all the touch points that we have in terms of customer service to paying some of the biggest authorities and doctors in the space to create these positive associations. So then over time, when you keep building these positive associations, they think of Q in a certain light that you're matching those associations to. Does that make sense?
I'd say so. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's fun though. Like creating emotion behind it. It's cool.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of work, but it's cool.
Yeah, that's for sure. You mentioned seeing trends evolve. How do you do that? What are tools for that you found specifically?
Yeah, I think this comes from the day when I used to do it for retailers. And it just came from a sixth sense. I mean, like just intuition, what
Right.
was trending. Because I used to just make products that I would like and I thought all my friends would like. And I never was like a data nerd and would look at, what's trendy on Google or anything like that. It'd literally be like what I think is in culture and what's going to be in culture based on my perception and then the life that I live and just following that. Because I knew that if I was into it, then there's a very high probability that a lot of other people will be into it as well. And that was literally my logic.
That's just keeping your pulse on the market.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. I like that. When did you decide to go into coaching?
I did coaching about 5 years ago and I reactivated it this year because I think that from a spiritual perspective, I've kind of self-actualized where I've kind of met all the different levels of the hierarchy. And the last one is to like help and give back. So there's nothing more that I enjoy. It's working with business owners and founders. And hopefully out of the last 17 years, all the fuck ups that I've made and all the challenges that I've faced and all the different mindset, I guess, shifts that I've had to make to get to where I am today, I can pass them on to them so they can grow quicker.
You have like a vision with it? Like you want to help this many people do a specific thing?
I don't really, because at the moment I'm building out like a mindset module. It's called the Success Vortex, and I've got like a small group of people that are going to be on that starting this Thursday actually.
Hmm.
And once I flesh out what type of coaching I really want to do, like at scale, then I think I'll start thinking about the big numbers. But I do envisage, filling out arenas, particularly in Croatia, to help, bring awareness and consciousness to personal development.
That's cool. So what are you going to be teaching this Thursday?
So the group coaching it's a mindset course called Success Vortex, and we go through reality creation. We go through how literally your inner world creates your outer world, how to be aware of that, how to reconstruct certain limiting or negative beliefs to create the desired life that you want. We go through body blueprint, visualization, all the different things that will create like a success vortex, meaning that you become like a magnet for all your desires. So you can attract success instead of actually, try and chase it.
What's been your there was always like a thing. You started building yourself up and then the success came, or you just worked hard as fuck on everything and then
Like
all that came later?
all my success came is when I focused on the who, not the how. Like for so long, I was so fixated on what strategy, what business, how am I gonna make my $100 million? And then back end of 2023, I knew I had to change something. So I go, that's it. 2024, I'm going all in on personal development. I'm not drinking. I'm getting up every morning 5 a.m. I'm gonna work out every day, eat clean food, no junk food. I'm gonna like do everything my conscious is telling me I should doing to be the best individual I can for 1 year. And I called it reverse gap year. And
Hmm.
I had a coach called Wes Watson. He's pretty popular online. I'm not sure if you heard of him. Yeah.
I've heard of him. Yeah.
Yeah. And essentially, what I was able to do in that year was increase my level of frequency and energy that I admit into the world. And that's when I attracted all the success. Qure went from 15 to $50 million. I got down to 6.8% body fat, started my personal brand, which I've been neglecting for the last 7 years, and attracted my dream wife, all in that 1 year. And I didn't really change anything like tactically. I just changed me. And I noticed this the year before in 2023 when I'd go for stints when I was good, business was great, and I wouldn't change anything in terms of business strategy, personnel. I'd go partying, the business numbers would go down. And it was literally just because of these low and high frequency states that I personally was going in, the business was reflecting that. And then I heard Rob Dyrdek. Have you heard of Rob Dyrdek?
No.
No? Oh, you should look him up. He's amazing. Anyway, he was talking about the same thing happened to him, and he sold his company for $300 or $400 million because he was just living in alignment with himself. He was eating clean, he was doing all the right things, and out of nowhere, this deal came. And that's when we kind of came to this concept that frequency outweighs effort. And if you become a high frequency human being, you'll attract success in your life a lot easier than trying to grind it out and put all this effort in.
I like love and hate that concept at the same time because it sort of makes sense, but at the same time you want to have stuff delegated, right? If you have 20 businesses when you're, I don't know, 60, you can't like focus, have your energy in all of them, right? How do you see that?
Yeah, but you're not supposed to. You're supposed to do
Right.
things that you know you should do. And especially at that stage in the business, you should have operators in all the businesses, and you should be maybe only working a couple hours a day. You'd be learning the rest of the day or enjoying life. It's about living in alignment with your own self to operate as high frequency as possible.
Mhm.
Especially at age 60, if your conscience is telling you you should still be working all day, then maybe that's what you should be doing. I'm sure at that, phase of your life, be like, I should be enjoying life as much as I can at this stage and not focusing on business as much.
How were you able to, how were you able to like say, trust yourself in that sense? Because I feel I go to like 20 different like ways of living like in a day. Like I'm disciplined, I do what I need to do, but at the same time I feel like I can feel a certain way about something. I have a cup of coffee and I feel totally different about it.
Yeah, so you only make decisions when you're in the highest frequency state possible. So you don't make any decisions in low frequency state. So it's maybe it's after
Right.
workout or after you have coffee, whatever state that you're in then, that's your best self. And that's the only time you should listen to yourself essentially. And you make decisions about your life as like the CEO of yourself in that state of mind. Everything else is just noise. So in that state, if you got your coffee, you've had to work out, you're feeling good, you're working, and you're saying, fuck this, I shouldn't party, I shouldn't go out, I should just grind it out for how long to get to a certain level of success, then that's probably what you should do. And you use regret as your guideline. Like for me, drinking was fine, maybe when I was in my 20s, I didn't regret it. But if you start regretting it when you wake up, then that's a sign that you need to let it go.
It's funny. Bro, I'm 21 right now, right? In the evening I feel a certain way about a girl, amazing. I wake up the next morning, it's like just a hundred, like completely different.
Yeah.
It's
But
very funny.
that's totally normal because in at the night we're in more of a low frequency state.
Yeah.
We want comfort. We want probably shit food. You want to watch Netflix. You just want companionship from someone else, and that's what happens. Because boredom leads to desires, which leads to vices. And a lot of time, girls are vices for us at that age, right? We're just after the physical side of it.
Sure.
And we're always bored at probably that night time where we're slightly tired, we're worn out from the day, and that's when these things creep in. But I don't think our best self would want that for us.
That's very funny. Um, what are resources to read up on this? Because I love what you're saying right now.
Oof. Resource straight up. I think you should read Wes's book. I think it's called Non-Negotiables or GP
Okay.
Mastery. I think Own Your Own Way.
Mm-hmm.
I can send it to you offline as well, a couple others, but I can't remember them off the top of my head. And there's another one around Money Blueprint. There's also The Big Leap. There's another great book
Mm-hmm.
talking about humans upper limits. That's all I can remember off the top of my head. I'm horrible at books.
No, I love that. No, that's cool though. It resonates what you're saying. You've been able to put something up in like on a more like broad scale, like be able to put it into words, like make decisions at a certain time. Like that made sense to me. But what you're saying right now with like frequencies, that's amazing. I love
Yeah,
that.
yeah, that's good.
Um, yeah, no, for sure. Gotta take advantage of the opportunity, right? So, I want to hear your thoughts on this. So, I'm in law school, like I said. I got about 2-3 hours a day to like spend on whatever. That's the podcast. That's business, whatever. Um, how did you do that back when you were in college? Um, sort of dividing your energy because that's a
So,
thing for me. I don't know.
what's the problem for you currently? What's the problem?
I spend about 8 hours a day on law school. The rest is like working out, this and that. I feel like it's too little the time I have to put in the business. I can drop out, but then I'll have to like work a job, and it'll be the same thing time wise.
I mean, what I did, I probably did similar to, I did reverse what you did. I worked 9 to 5 for my future, and I worked 5 to 9 for my current self, meaning that 9 to 5 was the business, 5 to 9 was to pay the bills. And I worked at a bar at night and refereed soccer on the weekends. So
Hmm.
in order to get by. I mean, you have limited resource in terms of your time and energy that you're going to put into. So sounds like you've already made your decision that you're going to do what the podcast 2-3 hours at night and then law school 8 hours, right?
I mean, the podcast is just like a side thing. Just to
Okay.
talk to guys like you. It's just I have this idea. I'll tell it to you. I like
Yeah.
whatever. Um, I'm talking to all these guys, right? Like you, like all these agency owners. So I was like, what if I build out these guys their personal brand and take like 10% of the leads I bring them? That's the thing. I'm it's top of mind right now. What are your thoughts on that?
You would build the brand out how?
Like create their content, create their YouTube scripts, all that.
Yeah.
Create a personal brand around them. Like they have their own funnels, but like create it as a separate funnel and bring in leads that way.
I mean, the first thing I'm going to ask is like, what's the goal that you're trying to achieve?
Money.
So you just want to bring money, yeah. So you want to create a service business and you want to provide a service of strategy, scripting, and stuff like that for personal brand.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it makes sense because I'm in that market now, and there's not a lot of people doing it across all platforms, and I think it's actually pretty expensive if you want to get the top agencies involved, and no one does it holistically across all channels. People
Hmm.
choose like Instagram, or they just choose YouTube. So I think you've definitely got a lane there if you can brand yourself as like that niche and go after it.
How would you approach it? Like the first steps.
I'd go and do it for free for a couple of people and get the testimonials.
Hmm.
Once I got results, then I would create case studies and then direct message other people. And then also I'd be creating content every single day on Instagram and TikTok organically on how to grow your personal brand and why it's important.
I love that. What about the offer itself? What would you offer besides what I just told you to make this like a complete package?
The offer itself,
Yeah.
I think you have to think about anything that would take time away from the actual individual, like the business owner, because that's his main constraint, right? He's got the time,
Hmm.
bandwidth to think about things. So the more you can organize everything in terms of like, hey, I'll find you a camera guy that's close that's going to come shoot for you in the day. Where literally they have to come sit down and potentially read some scripts and everything else is organized for them. I think that's a high leverage move for people in these situations because you'll attract better clients that way. So,
Hmm.
it's very time poor. So, I know if I had to come one day a week for 4 hours, just sit in an office or a content creation studio, pump out content for a month, then I think that, that'd be appealing.
Yeah. Sounds good. That's cool. Are there things at my age you would have cut out that you did that would have project or that would propelled success forward at your age right now?
Focusing on one thing for 10 years and not
That's it.
diversifying. Yeah. Concentration builds wealth and diversification keeps it. And if I didn't spread myself so thin, then I would be probably 10x richer than I am now.
I like that. That's cool.
Yeah.
Um, so now you're at like a different stage in life, right? With getting engaged and everything. What's your view on that now? Like the going hard as fuck on your one thing and then still like savoring the moment.
Yeah, I think at this point, I'm going to go even harder now because it's not just about me, it's about them. It's about
Hmm.
my wife and also the family that I'm going to have. And I know that I've got even limited time until the kids are a certain age where they're probably going to need me more. So now
Hmm.
I have to go even harder over the next 5 years until they get to that age. So it's even more motivation and energy for me at the moment.
How do you see the next 10, 20 years play out for you?
I think we're going to exit, Qure for multiple nine figures. And then I'd like to be a judge on Shark Tank. And I like to just
Cool.
coach businesses, invest in businesses, and that's it. And speak on stages around the world and help
Sounds
people
amazing.
everything I've learned.
Yeah, that's dope. Um, Between my age and your age, what was the biggest mental hurdle you had to get over to get to where you're at?
It was the negative belief about how to make money. So we all absorb money blueprints from people, whether we realize it or not. A lot of us absorb money blueprints from our parents, work the 9 to 5, pay off the mortgage, whatever, and that's what keeps us stuck. I was fortunate enough that I absorbed the new money blueprint from my mentor at the age 18, and that was working
Hmm.
200, sorry, that was working 3 days a week and making $200,000 a week. That was his blueprint, and I absorbed that from him, and that's what I had on my vision board. But when I was about 25, 26 years old, I met a billionaire, and the billionaire was telling me a story. And this was in Mykonos at one of the nightclubs, and he was telling me a story that he bought this new yacht, it was like $100 million, parked it at Monaco, wherever it was, and then looked to the side of him, and he saw an even bigger yacht, and he became instantly like depressed. So he sold everything, and now he plays guitar on a beach, and he's happier. He told me he was happier. And from that point, I kind of lost a lot of motivation to be successful because I thought that I would be him if I became ultra wealthy. And I
Mhm.
didn't realize until 4 or 5 years later, where the reason I was self-sabotaging my success was because I didn't really want to be wealthy because I thought I'd be depressed like that guy was. So I think a lot of us have these limiting beliefs around money and wealth that's actually stopping us from being successful when we don't even realize them.
So what served you best? What was the best framework?
So the first framework is first asking yourself, what beliefs do you have around money? And that could be even like how to make money. Like mine before was around I have to make 13 different businesses to do $1 million in revenue a month to get to $100 million, where I thought that was where I was going to build wealth, not just having one that's worth $100 million. Then anyway, so you have to bring awareness to all your limiting beliefs and all your negative beliefs and all your competing beliefs. Then the second step is you ask yourself, where is this true? Like what tangible evidence do I even have that this belief is true? Then the third step is then is to ask yourself, when did I acquire this belief? Because sometimes it's a moment of time, it's one conversation with one person, one experience, they have acquired this belief. Same as my story when I went to Mykonos with the billionaire.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last step is telling yourself, what would need to happen for this belief to no longer be true? Like what would need to happen in my life so I don't no longer believe this, to be true. For example, in terms of, that billionaire story that I told you, what happens if I could do something that's authentic and I loved every single day and I had limitless creation I didn't want to retire from? Then would I even care about how much money I made? No. But if I had to sell my soul and to make the money I hated what I was doing every day, it's a different story. So if I found a way to make money where I actually enjoyed showing up every single day and I didn't want to retire, I didn't really want to sell the business, then that narrative wouldn't be true for me.
It's fascinating, man. You have a cool way of approaching it. In a way, it's like datafied, but it makes sense at the same time.
Yeah, good. I'm glad of that. We're working on it. There's so much in my head, but the challenge is trying to explain it in a way that people can understand it.
Yeah, that's I hear you for sure. No, it's fun though. You have like a fresh perspective on it. I talk to a lot of guys, right? But
Yeah,
it's sort of different. It's
cool.
cool. I like it.
I'm glad.
Closing, man. Your view on pressure, stress, the highs and lows. What's your framework for that?
Stress is only as bad as you think it is. So this has been proven in research and a lot of literature, but essentially stress is fine. It's your relationships with stress that's the problem. So if you believe stress is good for you, then it is good for you. But if you think it's bad for you and it's killing you, then it is bad for you. So it's all in the eye of the beholder, because we are the creators of our own reality, and what we have internally will be reflected externally. So it's
Mm-hmm.
all about the internal conversation we're having, the internal feelings we're having about everything else. But personally, I love the stress because I know if I'm doing something stressful, it's my opportunity to expand my vessel and bring more light into it from the creator and level up. And without it, that now analogy still exists. You can't make diamonds without pressure. So
Sure.
yeah.
I like that. You mentioned self-actualization. What would like 100% potential reached look like for you?
I think when I get to the stage where I can really give back and serve a lot of people and make a big difference in their lives, that's when I've finished the final stage, I think.
Thanks for listening to the Qure podcast. If you enjoyed it, you can go to quirepodcast.com to check out all of the previous episodes. quirepodcast.com.